So I'm going to tell a story today that I've never talked to anyone about publicly, unless it's been my family or I've been drunk. And I'm not drunk now, so just letting you know, not yet anyway. It started in 2012. I moved to Wellington to do the movie What We Do in the Shadows. I played Nick in it. Most people don't really know who I am. It was all just about Tyker and Jermaine. I just kind of hung along to them. So I moved to Wellington. I was there for 2 months doing this, and it was amazing. It was like the best job I've ever had. Got to hang out with my friends and film something really funny. And then I'd saved up enough money from there to go traveling around Asia. And I was in Asia for about 4 months. And then in July 2013, I moved back to Wellington to shoot some more scenes, to do pickups, what you call them. And I moved to the hut, to Lower Hutt with my parents. I don't know if anyone here, really, are you proud to be from the hut? Oh man, it's a bit of a shithole. So I moved back to Lower Hutt, and I was living with my parents. And months before that, my little brother and my little sister had just moved to Australia. So it was the first time that my parents had actually been by themselves in about 26 years since when we first moved to New Zealand from Chile. And that was pretty tough for them. And I could tell when I went back to Wellington to the hut that something seemed a bit different, something was a bit off. They weren't getting on as much as I thought they were. There were times when my mum would kind of leave the house for days on end, and I'd ask my dad about it, and he was always the tough guy, and he just tried to shrug it off. And then I asked my mum about it, and she was the same. She was just like, "Oh, don't worry, everything's going to be fine." And then I found out a few weeks after that apparently my mum had been staying at Women's Refuge. It wasn't anything physical. I think mentally she just kind of had enough of the relationship, so she just wanted to get out. And so one day I was over being there. It was just way too intense, and I just wasn't good for my headspace. So I packed up all my stuff and I went and stayed with my friend in town. And it was just me and my dad at home by that time. And I said to him, I'm going to leave. And he was like, "Yeah, sweet, fine, I'll be fine." And then I could tell he wasn't fine. And as I was walking out of the house, I could hear him crying in his room. And I went into his room and I said, "What's wrong?" And he just broke down and just said, "Why does everybody leave me?" And then he hugged me and broke down again, and then started crying. And I was like, I won't leave you. Like I told you, I'll stay here if you want to talk. And he was like, the staunch guy that he was, he's like, "Nah, just get out. Everything will be fine." So I left, went about my night, went and stayed with some friends in town. And then the next day I was going back to Lower Hutt to pick up my bags and stuff, because I was going to move out of there for good, because I'd had enough of the whole place. So I went and got my stuff, but I realised that I'd forgotten my keys. I didn't have any house keys. So I messaged my dad, got no response. Then I messaged my brother and my sister in Australia, and they were like, "No, we haven't heard from Dad all day." So I was like, "Oh, okay, that's a bit weird. He's meant to be at work and stuff. He's not answering his phone." So eventually I got to the hut, and I got to our house, and my brother always used to leave his window a bit open. The window was quite niggly, so I knew how to break into it. So I went up, which in Lower Hutt, that's fine. People just do that, and nobody really gets arrested for. So I broke into the house, and I went in, and I could see a light coming from his room, and I was like, "Oh fuck!" This is, my stomach just dropped, and I just thought the worst. And I went into his room, and there was nothing there, and I was like, "Oh phew!" I breathed a sigh of relief. I was like, "This is awesome." He's probably out somewhere. And then I turned around, and I looked at the living room door, and there was a cord that was coming down from the top of the door. And I was like, "Okay, he's actually on the other side of that door, and he's hung himself." And I had a brief. There's my dad, he's like my hero, and he'd actually stopped me from doing the same thing a couple of years before that. And I was like, "Fuck, how could he do this to me now?" And I had a brief second where I thought, "Okay, maybe I should, if I just go to the kitchen and just get a knife and stab myself, I don't have to see what's behind that door, and I could just be over it." Then I kind of regained myself, and I was like, "No, fuck, just be a man, just own up." So I opened the door, and then, as you can imagine, his body just dropped right in front of me. And I screamed, and I was like, I said "pa," which is what I used to call him, which is dad in Spanish. And I took the cord off his neck, and I was just fidgety, just didn't know, like I am in the speech right now. I just didn't know what to do. I got my phone out. I had 1% left on my phone on the battery. I dropped it on the ground, and I was just really this is. So whenever someone says now that their phone's about to die, I just laugh at them. That's, no one knows pressure with their phone like that. And so eventually I called 111, and they were like, "Yeah, we're going to send an ambulance through." And I hung up on them because I only had 1% battery, and I had to call everyone else. So I called my mum, and I was like, "Hey, he's killed himself." And she was like, "Okay, don't do anything stupid. And I was like, no, I'm not. And then I hung up on her. And I didn't know till that night when she told me that apparently she'd called another ambulance to come to the house in case I'd done something stupid. But luckily that didn't happen. And then after that, I called my little sister in Australia. Like she was my dad's best friend. Like he was, you know, they were the closest out of anyone in our family. And I told her, and she just let out like the biggest scream that I've ever heard in my entire life. Like it still haunts me to this day. It was just a screech. And yeah, like I have night terrors about it, like every night. It was horrible. So yeah, that happened, and like our lives just completely changed forever after that. And it was really weird, as I said before, because I was filming What We Do in the Shadows, and it was like this weird thing because I just wanted to keep my mind busy. So I went back to work like 2 days after that, and the only day I took off was when we had the funeral. And I watched the movie like every now and then, and I go back and watch it, and I look at the scenes that we filmed when all that was happening, and it's just like I just look like dead inside. And that's not a pun, because like the movie's about me being a dead vampire. Like I actually I literally looked like there was this emptiness behind there, but I guess it paid off for the movie. But yeah, that was just so weird that I had to go from the situation where I was like in my own life was something that was just so dark and shit, and then go work like 12 hours a day in this place where it was like just non-stop laughter, and it was just like the two biggest extremes. But I think it kind of helped me out a bit. But actually, it wasn't all just like depressing stuff that happened around this time. Like there were a few kind of I guess funnier stories that came out of it. My mum and my brother, they sent me to a hypnotist so that I could kind of get hypnotized and like take some of the stuff that I saw out of my head, apparently. She like put me into a trance and then do some weird stuff. And I went to see her. She was in Scorching Bay in Wellington, which is like this beach in the middle of nowhere. I had to like walk like 1 kilometre up like a dirt track to get to her place. She was like this real hippie. And I got there, and she made me lie in the bed, and then she like put on Sounds of the Ocean on a CD, but we were actually like right by the beach, and like so I just got drowned out by the actual sounds of the ocean. And then she's like, all right, shut your eyes. And like she did like some weird like stone shit with me, like banging stones over my head, and like that looks so weird. And did like a chant, and that went on for about 20 minutes. And then I realized that apparently by that point I should have been hypnotized already. I should have been asleep. And she was like a really nice person, and I felt bad, so I actually just had to. I just pretended to be asleep for 2 hours, which was really bad because I really had to go for a piss. And then at the end of the 2 hours, she eventually like rang a bell, which was meant to wake me up, and I had to pretend to be all woken up, and I was like, oh, how long was I out for? And she was like, oh, you were out for 2 hours, and I was like, oh God, that was so great. I've done a bit of acting in my time, but that was hands down the best performance I've ever given in my entire life. I really hope she's not watching this. To be honest, I don't think she can get Wi-Fi where she lives, so yeah, it might take a while for things to get easier, but what does happen is you learn to cope with how hard it is. And at the end of the day, like he was like my dad, he was just sick. He like had an illness, but he never talked to anyone about it. Like no one knew about it. Like when on the night that it happened, I overheard my mum talking to the ambulance driver, to the paramedic. He asked her if he was on any medication, and apparently he was on like all this medication, like antidepressants and anti-anxiety pills, and no one knew about it. I never knew that. Like you never thought that he would have done that. And like I think if he just like maybe a couple of years before that, if he just spoke out to one of us, or like he wasn't the most social person, so he never really had that many friends. Like if he just talked to like one of us, to my sister, you know, like he could have avoided this. But he was just, maybe he was embarrassed, and I think that's like the stigma around suicide at the moment. So many people are just embarrassed by it. I was the same. Like when I was depressed, and when my dad did that, I was embarrassed for my family. I was embarrassed for myself. I was embarrassed for my dad. But we actually just have to sit down, and it's not that scary. Like last year, 2015, New Zealand we had the highest rate of suicide deaths since the coroner started taking records. So it's not getting like any better at all, it's just getting worse. And teenage suicides is also like, it's terrible. It's amongst the worst of established countries. And that's, you know, it's like my dad was 53 years old when that happened, and he thought he didn't have anyone to talk to about it. Imagine if you're a teenager, if you're 13 years old, and like how do you feel like about that? Like how can you talk to anyone when like a grown man can't do it? Like 12-year-olds, 11-year-olds. There was an 11-year-old in the news not that long ago who committed suicide. Like that's shocking. So I think I just want to put the word out there, like just talk to people about it. Like we live in such a connected world. Like we're all online doing everything. If you feel down, like I guarantee you, if you guys pull your phone out now, if you put a status update on your Facebook, which is just a sad face emoji, I guarantee you someone will get in touch with you and say, hey, is everything okay? But don't make the same mistake I did last week. I did a show in Palmerston North for this guy, and then I thanked him afterwards. I sent him a text saying, hey, thank you for the gig, and I did a smiley face emoji, but I accidentally did a smiley wink face emoji, and now it just looks like I was trying to hit on him after the show, so yeah, I think go out there, tell people, like, it's not hard to put the word out there. Talk to your friends. Like, everyone's just scared to be the first person to bring it up. But I guarantee you, if any way you want to do it, if you want to do it online, if you want to text someone, if you want to call someone up, put the word out there and people will respond. And that was my dad there. Yeah, he was pretty awesome, and yeah, I really miss him.